This week's Hot Topic, we take a look at the urban-rural divide in North Carolina. And joining us for that discussion are Dan Gerlach, the president of the Golden Leaf Foundation, which looks at economic issues in rural North Carolina, and the mayor of the town of Benson, William Massengill. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Dan, talk a little bit about, from your perspective, running the Golden Leaf Foundation, what's the true nature of the urban-rural divide in North Carolina? What are the economic challenges that the rural part of the state really face?
Well, the foundation's been around for 18 years to address how do we transform the economy of rural tobacco-dependent distressed areas of our state. And so this is on our mind every single day. I think the advantage of North Carolina is its rural areas are not that far apart. In other words, it's a fairly concentrated population compared to the rural areas of other states. We're still more heavily rural than any other state. I mean, only Texas has more kids going to rural schools than we do. And so there's enough of that in proximity not to have a rural-urban divide, but more codependency about how do the two complement each other because they both have strengths. And to build on the strengths that we have and the diversity that we have, that's how we're going to get all boats lifted and not just try to level down in this exercise.
Mm-hmm. So Dan, the Golden Leaf will finance projects, give perhaps grants to certain things in order to level the playing field for
Yes.
Most of these rural counties. Tell me something. In the last 10 years, do you think that what we call this urban-rural divide has gotten worse, or do you think it has gotten better?
I think the challenges facing rural North Carolina are different. I think the aging of the rural parts of our state and declining population is a challenge that we're trying to address. I don't think we got in this situation 10 years ago, or it's been hundreds of years in the making. And so we're trying to figure out ways how to help areas from Benson in the east to areas in the mountains and in the Piedmont to diversify. So I don't think it's getting worse. I think what it needs to do is it demands increased attention to make sure the trajectory has changed for the next 20, 30 years.
Well, Mayor, Benson, a town of about 3,500 folks near the intersection of Interstate 40 and 85 in Johnston County. 95, excuse me. And so you're sort of on the tip of the spear in terms of dealing with these types of economic challenges. What has been the strategy for the town of Benson?
Well, that's what we've tried to do is for the last 10 years, think about what our strategy would be. And we've really used a lot of outside resources to help us come in and think differently. Our university systems have helped us. We're working right now at the NC State to come up with a plan that'll take us for the next 5 to 10 years. But we've really looked at how we can invest in infrastructure. We were one of the first communities in North Carolina to have smart grid for water and electric. And as a result of that investment we've made, we've been able to, we'll be offering the second electric rate decrease in 2 years. So figuring out what government can do best that only government can do, how to make those investments, but then also thinking about how we can partner with the private sector, with nonprofits, with other people to come together.
Mayor, what is, you're in Johnson County, so Johnson County in many parts is doing really well.
Right.
In fact, the population trend is it's one of the very few counties in eastern North Carolina where the population trend of ESRI, the research group, has estimated that from 2016 to 2020, Johnson County's population is likely to grow by 9.9%, which is, frankly, I mean, Wilson is close, about 9%. Nash is about 5%. Edgecombe is actually, they're predicting it's going to be down. Right. But regardless of that, where do you see Benson fit into sort of more of a countywide?
So it's a great question. So you have counties like Johnston County where the areas around Clayton have a lot of affluence, job creation, and all that's happening. You have the southern part of the county that's very different, still very rural. Our average income in Benson is only about $25,000 a year, which is low. We've got a lot of highly educated people, and we've got a lot of people that live in poverty. So figuring how can you raise that up? So I think for us, it's really two strategies. We'd like to grow our industrial commercial sector, but we also know being close to the triangle, there's a chance for us to not only have people to go to Raleigh and work, or maybe go to the new plant in Clayton, all of that together. So it's really a two-pronged strategy. We want this to be a great place to live, and we want some ways to be somewhat of a bedroom community, but also we want to be able to grow our industrial commercial base. So we sort of look at it as a two-pronged approach.
Dan, looking at what Benson's done, what is the takeaway? What is the thing other rural communities in North Carolina should emulate about what Benson has accomplished?
Well, I think in the Benson, they realize they're part of a larger labor shed. It's not them against the big bad city, it's them as a part of it, offering affordability, offering a different quality of life that's going to appeal to a lot of different kind of people. I think the other thing Benson's done well is with its young people is try to give them opportunities to show, here are the types of things that you can do to live in Benson. Maybe you go away to college, but you come back during the summers. We've worked on that great partnership with William, who's been a mentor to several of our Golden Leaf scholars, for which we're grateful. So I think that those are the types of things. But how do you look up on these bigger cities that have perhaps get more of the attention as a resource rather than an enemy? That's what they've done well, and that's what most successful places are doing as well.
Yeah, but do you think, and we talked about this in the previous segment, about many of these Eastern North Carolina counties having sort of an aging out population, you
Yes.
know? How do you build a labor base? I mean, can Golden Leaf in this process do anything at all? I mean, yes, you have the money, you have...
Sure. Yeah, yes, we can. I think the answer to that is, one is frame it so young people retain the attachment if they go away to college, to their home communities, to opportunities that are there. Two is look at sectors around this aging of the population. If you look in the inner banks, if you look at some areas, the retirement population puts a little less demand than average on public infrastructure, but brings a lot of resources there. In a town like Bath in far eastern North Carolina, you have that opportunity. And also around healthcare and in other areas of elder care, there's job opportunities there. I mean, these people are going to need care. They're going to need remodeling of their homes. They're going to need kind of one-story versus two-story homes. I mean, there's opportunities there, and it's building on that aging economy and opportunity, I think, can help.
Mayor, we'll give you the final word. What's maybe the one or two lessons you learned going through this process in Benson that you would hope other local rural community leaders would learn from?
Well, I think, for one, you've really got to think long term. A lot of things, if they were easy, they would have already happened. So you really have to think, what are the things you need to really work on for the long term? You need to be positive about your community. You can't be everything that people may immediately want to, but what are your strengths? What are your strengths? How do you play on those? And then, as Dan said, how do you look at the urban areas as an asset for you, a strategic asset that you can use to bring money and income back into your community? So I think there's a lot of things we've learned over the 10 years that I've been the mayor, and I think one of the things we've learned is continually build on your successes and learn how to be more strategic.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on Bottom Line.